So Program Director, Honorable MEC Ramakopa, Bishop Adams, and I'm short, that's the third confession. Bishop Dalton Adams, esteemed public and private sector delegates, it's a real privilege for me to be here. And I'm going to start not with what SAP has done at the outset, because there are quite stark numbers. And the MEC has touched on it, but these are quite distressing, and I think we need to be quite honest about where we find ourselves and then challenge ourselves in terms of how we remediate. I think we've got some great assets as South Africans. We are an incredibly resilient country. Our colleagues from Africa, we can apply the same comment to that. We are innovative, and out of challenge comes great opportunity. And I think that's really the way that I'd like to frame what we put forward. But that notwithstanding, these are the numbers. 4.7 million. That's the number of young South Africans between 15 and 34 who are unemployed today, not underemployed, not waiting for something better, but unemployed. 60.9% of young people aged 15 to 24 have no work, which has profound implications. And this is not just a South African story. The ILO's latest data tells us there are 408 million people globally who want paid work and cannot access it. 260 million young people globally are not in employment, education, or training. 2.1 billion workers are in informal employment with no security and benefits. And I think fundamentally it's a challenge that not only impacts us, but as a global context as well. I think one of the key insights out of the ILO's research is that the damage of youth unemployment is not linear. It compounds. So for every month that a young person spends outside of the formal economy, the harder it becomes to re-enter it. Skills and confidence erode, the psychological scarring compounds and accumulates over time. So, and I think everybody in this room will agree that it's not whether we have so in private sector you say we've got a problem, in public sector we say we have a challenge. The reality is, notwithstanding the terminology, we've got a real challenge, and what are we prepared to do about it? So I don't need to explain to this audience what the ILO life cycle is. So suffice to say that we are obligated to get as many people from stage one, so unemployed, zero GDP contribution, skills atrophy, psychological scarring, through to at the very least stage 4, where they're functionally active, they're net contributors, the career growth compounds, and ideally stage 5. So where there's a multiplier effect and each employed person sustains their dependence, and growth compounds. Now the critical insight, and I think this is a key point for us and has been a very significant focus of SAP, is that the transition from stage 1, unemployed, to stage 2, which is trained and certified, is the most dangerous if delayed. And this is exactly where our SAP programs have intervened and have been focusing. This is just a visual representation of the life cycle. And just to call out a few obvious things. So imagine if even 1 million out of the 4.7 million young people made the journey from unemployed to trained to employed to being functionally active. It will have a massive compounding effect on the economy, I think our national psyche, and I was chatting briefly to the MEC this morning. Ultimately, the intention must be to have future-fit skills for the country, because we oftentimes plan for the next year, the next 5 years. The fundamental challenge is that we're looking into the future and trying to create future-fit skills that will make sure that we can grow our economy exponentially. So there's a fundamental opportunity. We believe that this is not a dream, it's not an insurmountable challenge, it's a program design challenge, and as SAP we've been working very hard at addressing this. As I've mentioned, there's a multiplier effect that for each person, each employed person sustains their dependence, and ultimately the more people that we can get through the various stages of the ILO life cycle, there are massive benefits for the economy. Now, the next slide I think is quite neat. We all got our prize under the table. So let me explain to you what we believe as SAP, our quadruple win framework. So here, I think it's really quite neat that it's a win-win, win-win. So if you're the young person, and this is now for each individual that goes through the specific programs that we've put forward, and I'll unpack the pillars a little bit later on. So from a young person perspective, they have a meaningful career, they have globally recognized certification, they have economic independence, and we can't underestimate that. Secondly, the customer or partner wins. So they have a skilled professional that they desperately need. They reduce time to productivity. So you've got fit-for-purpose skills. You hit the ground running and become a contributor very quickly. South Africa wins. So we've got an economically active citizen. They contribute to the tax base. The reduced dependency burden. I think, once again, this is well understood. And obviously, as SAP, we win. So it builds out a stronger ecosystem. It drives innovation. And ultimately, and the MEC made the point earlier on, sustainability is key. So it's all well and good coming up with interventions. The real test is a test over time. So over a period of 1, 2, 5, 10 years, are we able to stay in our effort? Are we able to continuously grow out sustainable ecosystems? I'm doing well. I've managed to keep the screen synchronized. So let me give myself a pat on the back. So let's get into the 4 pillars. And I'll go into this in a fair amount of detail. So I thought it'd be good to start with Siafunda. Now, this is the key entry point. So you cannot enroll in the Young Professionals Program, the Access Educate to Employ, or use the SAP Learning Hub if you've never held a mouse or connected to the internet. So the Siafunda Community Technology Centers form the foundation of the entire ladder. As the founding private sector partner, SAP placed the first rung of that ladder in communities that the formal skills pipeline have never reached, and we remain committed to it. Pillar 2 is the SAP Learning Hub Student Edition. So this is a completely free resource, and I'll unpack it a little bit later, for any enrolled student. So it covers the full SAP course portfolio with 2 free certification attempts, and in so doing, we remove the financial barrier entirely. And I think, MEC, something struck me when you did your introduction. So let me just share a personal anecdote. I have a 17-year-old son. He's a lovely man. He's like his dad, charming, intelligent. And he's got to make a really important decision. So he's deciding, is he going to Stellenbosch University, is he going to UCT? And it's incredibly exciting. At the same time, it's intimidating. So he's saying, so Dad, what were you thinking about 30 years ago when you started your journey? What do I need to think about, because I'd really like to make an impact? But he's from a position of privilege, so there's no barrier to entry. And I know, Jen, we touch on this often. Think of the communities we come from. So for him, he could pay a registration fee when he applied to 4 universities. Now that's a barrier to entry if you don't have the money. He can choose whether he wants to go to boarding school at varsity or stay at home. It's a great position of privilege. He's not having to worry about how he's going to fund and how many jobs he'll have to have when he gets into university. So I think fundamentally for me, I think a stark reminder is that so many of us in the room, we come from a position of privilege. And MEC, as you say, not 15 kilometers from where we sit. I was in Pretoria Central last week, meeting with a few government departments, and just walking through Pretoria Street and seeing the number of kids that are going through training courses. But I wasn't entirely sure. I was trying to convince myself that they were hopeful. And I think this is ultimately the real test and challenge for us, is how we ensure that we remove the barriers to entry, which is a big focus of what we're doing as SAP, and yourselves in the room, because this is very much about a partnership and ensuring that everybody has a ticket to the game, because that ultimately is going to be one of our critical success factors. We'd, of course, like to encourage that for Pillar 2 in particular, the universities and tertiary institutions make those tools available, because they are free, and ultimately it results in a global certification. So Pillar 3 is our Educate to Employ program. which is our Learn to Earn program with UNICEF, EY, Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, and Coursera. Over 2,000 learners have passed through the program in year one, and this allows for a structured progression from digital literacy through certification to confirmed job placement. And then Pillar 4, the Young Professionals Program. So this is very much our flagship program, which has been in place since 2012. It includes more than 4,000 graduates across 41 countries, including 1,900 from Africa. The program has a 95% placement rate. It is the top of the ladder, and it results in a globally recognized SAP professional ready for enterprise careers. So I think it's super exciting, and it's something that we continue to build out and cascade. Just a little bit more detail in terms of what you'll find. So what do you do at the Siafunde Center? So it's about digital access, it's about CETA accredited ICT training, adult literacy, so it's really from grassroots to something a bit more aspirational. A bit more detail on the left in terms of what you'll find in terms of the SAP certifications. And then I just want to emphasize the point about this is really a partner ecosystem. So as SAP, we're very proud to be part of this, but we need to recognize all of our partners that have walked the journey with us. So it's not about SAP alone. This is a coalition built for scale, and ultimately we believe will be a self-fulfilling ecosystem. So let's talk AI for a moment. And let me be direct about this. At SAP, we are of the view that AI empowers people. We don't believe it should replace them. I've had 4 different roles in my career. The first was as a software developer. I was pretty good. I'm no competitor for Claude AI. So I still code, so I try and run a smart home, and I use AI to do that because ultimately it's so much, it's ones and zeros. I'm not very good at that. I get bored. So that was one role. The second was the Chief Information Officer in government. And the beauty of AI is that as a CIO, you've got so many insights, and if you can get your context right within, in South African context is unique oftentimes, you've got a global pool of information you can share. I was at a Big 4 consulting firm, and I see some of my colleagues here. AI has changed consulting fundamentally. So what took me previously perhaps 2 months paid per hour by a client, potentially now could take 3-4 days. So it's fundamentally changed the way that we do our work. And now I'm at the OEM, and I'm using AI on a daily basis to give me insights, and smart people like Litash tell me how to use it. Because the reality is that the young people consume technology in a way that I grapple with. And I'd like to think I'm reasonably smart, but I just can't hold a candle to them. So I think fundamentally for us, it's not about reducing jobs, it's about making sure, and I actually want to touch on 3 examples out of Sapphire. So there were 3 use cases, and I'll unpack what Sapphire is in a moment. So Ericsson presented the use cases where they've got 85,000 users on enterprise AI, but all of it governed by skilled humans. So it's not about reducing the workforce, it's about empowering them. Marta Fompac have deployed humanoid robots, but once again, humans define the priorities. And I think what's perhaps pertinent for public sector, the Madrid City Council have achieved a 98% efficiency through the use of AI. And I think this is a potential for some of our municipalities in the country. So AI at enterprise scale should be governed by skilled humans, empowering people, not replacing them. And I think this is I think oftentimes when you hear the OEM speak in the technology sector in particular, and you see the reduction in headcount at a lot of entities, we believe that there's a place for everybody. What it does mean is that we need to reskill and make sure that you have the tools that you require and that you know how to utilize that. So I don't want to go into this slide too much, but there's been a massive growth in the uptake of courses for AI, and organizations facing skills shortages, but it does create a fantastic opportunity for us in South Africa. So if we focus on the right areas, I believe that we can build out a very competent, skilled set of individuals that can hit the ground running, ideally locally, maybe in Africa, but even for a lot of the people going through our programs that move internationally, they ultimately come back home and they have an impact anyway. So as we start concluding, Program Director, I think this convergence creates a massive opportunity for us as South Africa. There's an exponential demand for the skills that we're talking about. I've unpacked the 4 pillars and how that contributes to these outcomes. To a large extent, we've tried to remove the barriers for entry. At Sapphire, we also announced that there's a €100 million partner fund that has been created to grow the ecosystem across Africa, to create local demand for the talent of all 4 pillars, and I'm sure MEC, it's something that we can explore with you in due course. And then my second to last slide is really just to talk a little bit about the demand signal from Sapphire. So this was an event that took place in Orlando and then Madrid, both centered on the theme, the beginning of better. The message for the audience, I think this particular audience is focused and direct. The world urgently needs the talent that the 4 pillars are producing. So the world is now moving at the speed of AI. It's a window of opportunity. I think we need to be quite opportunistic, and then leveraging our innate ability to learn, our resilience as individuals, our innovation. I think it positions the people of this country and into Africa incredibly well. Orlando showed us the vision. Madrid showed us the vision is working. So whether it be in factories, in government, at scale. And the question for South Africa is not whether organizations will need certified talent. They already do. The question is whether that talent comes from here. And I think we should all work really hard to make sure that that happens. My last slide, the call to action. So for everybody in the room. So university partners, I think we've got some great collateral that we can share and that we'd like you to utilize. It's at no cost, and it gives your students global certifications. CHROs and HR leaders commit to hiring from the certified programs. I think the 95% placement rate is exceptional, and it's because you are uptaking the skills. Corporate CSI leaders partner with CFUNDA, sponsor a STEM facility, open up your network. Professional services firms join the Educate to Employ consortium like EY, Deloitte, Accenture, Capgemini have already done. And ultimately, we're incredibly excited at the opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention.